What's going on, guys? My name is Aldeniro and welcome back to the Midnight Hour. The first episode seemed to go down really well, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this format. At the moment the background is still the same. I'm trying to work on getting some kind of visual imagery going on, but it's quite difficult for me, but just give me time, I'll definitely sort it out, I'm sure. The current episode that you're about to listen to is a conversation between me and the same guest from last week, which is Jack, whose Twitter handle is in the description, and if you want to know how to pronounce it, listen carefully because we definitely talk about that at one point as well. It's a pretty good conversation. I think it's about fears and phobias, and like last week, it definitely gets stronger as it goes along. There's a little bit of sort of self-discovery in there as well, like a moment of clarity that you'll probably hear. And apart from that, hopefully you guys enjoy. If you do enjoy the video that you're listening to, please do leave a like or a comment or a favor or get involved somehow. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, thanks for the support from last week, and hopefully you enjoy this week. So, a phobia is an irrational type of fear that evokes this intense anxiety or a feeling of being unsettled or uncomfortable or panicked. And if you've got a phobia of something, the thought of it or even the sight of it can make you just incredibly hypersensitive to the situation, to the point where you're just really, really uncomfortable and anxious. It makes it like it increases your blood pressure, your heart rate, and it just sends panic signals across your brain. Whereas a fear is a more simple emotion. It's usually present where you believe your life to be at risk, or you're going to be in some kind of dangerous situation that might have larger ramifications than the response to a phobia is. Like a phobia is more there and now, whereas a fear can be incredibly more vast than that. It can be like a physical threat, like a man wielding a knife, or a mental thing like fear of failing an exam because the failure may lead to a supposed lesser quality of life in the long run, or just a serious threat to your happiness or mental stability. And I guess the most popular fear, or the most popular phobia rather, that everybody understands is arachnophobia. And I didn't know if this was genetic or if it was something that you sort of learn from birth. And it's interesting because we both have differing opinions on this. You think that it's something that you sort of learn in life as you...
Yeah, I think my parents, taking an anecdotal evidence, which is really the only evidence either of us have.
Yeah.
I mean, really, my dad's not afraid of spiders. My mum kind of is, but it's not a big deal. I'm not afraid of spiders to any massive degree. It's not nice if I'm walking in the dark and I walk through a spider web and one lands on my face.
Yeah.
But I've got a much larger fear of things like wasps than I've ever had as spiders.
And it's interesting because on this side of the world, you're far more likely to die of a wasp sting than you are from any kind of spider interaction. Yeah. And there's actually a really popular urban myth that people are always going on about, is that a daddy longlegs has more venom. Have you heard that before? It has more venom than... And that's such bullshit.
What was it? It's the most poisonous insect in the world, but it doesn't have any fangs, so it can't bite you.
Yeah, but technically it's a dragonfly, isn't it? It's not even an arachnid.
It's not even a spider.
Yeah. I was definitely on the side of thinking that it's something that you learn and you're born with. And the reason being for me was that, like, I have this really early memory of when I was about 3 or 4 years old, and I was washing my hands in the sink, and a massive spider leg came out from the sink, and I reached in and picked the spider out, and I was looking at it, and it did not bother me at all. So I don't know. I know that the most accepted hypothesis is that arachnophobia is genetic and that humans developed it to help us evolve and progress. But I sort of think that's, like, I don't know. I don't actually know where I stand. Like, part of me thinks that that's just stupid and it doesn't really make any sense, because if that were the case, then we would also have similar fear reactions to, like, the various other animals out there. Like, I think one thing as well that really stands in the way of the idea that it's genetic is that we did not have a fear of sharks until Jaws came out. Like, that wasn't a widespread fear, and then that was when we started killing off sharks, was because of that.
Yeah, I remember reading something about Jaws. It was after it came out. Australia and a lot of holiday beach resorts actually saw a big dip in tourism as you know, places that were common to find sharks actually found a big dip in tourism.
Yeah, it's crazy.
As people were, terrified of being eaten alive, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And like we assume that when a shark sees you, it'll eat you, but more people die every year from falling out of bed than they do from shark.
I think last year there was something like 42 people were killed by kangaroos.
Yeah.
Whereas there was only, I'm not even sure anyone died of shark bites.
I think there were.
Well, maybe it might have been 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think it's an average of 2 or 3 every year.
Yeah,
supposedly.
But it's nothing. It's nothing like people like to make it out to seem.
And an average of 9 people die every year from a vending machine falling on them. It's like that you should technically be more afraid of vending machines than of sharks. But the spider thing, I sort of still err on the idea that it's genetic. I know when I was looking this up to find out about it, I was coming across pictures of the Brazilian wandering spider and everything, and it definitely made me feel a little bit uneasy. I'm not an arachnophobic. There's actually a gigantic spider that lives in my room somewhere, and I actually think he's well cool because he eats all the flies and shit, and I hate flies.
In terms of the genetic thing, I'm just thinking now, just like I mean, if it was a genetic thing, if humans have evolved this fear of spiders, I mean, why would people? I mean, I don't know your, the genesis of your family, but I mean, people of say a European descent, why would we have developed the fear of spiders when all the most poisonous spiders are,
South
in the southern hemisphere?
Yeah, I know. My family is definitely Irish, the whole way.
Mine's English and Scottish, I think.
Yeah, so it doesn't really make sense. But there was a guy. I hope I'm pronouncing this name right, Martin Seligman, and I believe this was in the 70s or so. He's a psychologist who put forward a theory that there must have been a moment in time on the timeline of humanity where spiders were a serious threat to us, which that does make sense, because the decrease in spider related deaths over the last 50 years probably has more to do with modern medicine than it does spiders, venom and things that. But I don't know where I stand on it. I know that the most common thing is that it's genetic, but I also know that in South America they eat spiders, you know what I mean. I don't know. I don't know how it works in the mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would personally err on the side of it being a conditioned fear more than a natural fear or a genetically produced fear.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's just that when I was looking at the pictures of them, I did definitely feel a slight elevated heartbeat, just a slight moment of ugh.
Yeah, I think there's just something with that many legs that's hairy and that many eyes.
Yeah,
it's just not natural.
I think there's another idea I've always had that I don't really care about insects. Even if there's a wasp around me or a bee, I'm more inclined to just let it be. That's not fun. But I'll just it's fine if there's an insect there, but I cannot deal with 10 insects, or I think you tend to get uncomfortable when say you see an ant, that's fine, but if you see 50 ants, then you're like, I'm gonna move now. That's not okay. And I think maybe it's just that spiders are kind of big insects and they've got a lot of legs and it could just be that. That's why it's sort of, what would be the word? Just naturally sort of off-putting.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I'd like to know how that sort of phobia is present though. Most phobias are formed from anxiety anyway and things like that. But I don't like it when people just kill spiders just because it's a spider. What the hell, man?
I mean, I've had instances where my sister will see, the money spiders, the ones that are smaller than your little finger, your little fingernail, and she'll scream bloody murder and get someone to kill it, and it's it's a money spider. It's not going to do anything.
And I think as well, there's another argument to be made for it not being genetic, in that a lot of people who are like that, I guarantee you could sit her down and just explain rationally that it's not going to kill you. There's no spider this side of the world that can kill you.
Yeah.
Unless you have some, I remember what was it in the year? Actually, I think it was last year. The Daily Mail went mental when they were going on about all these false widow spiders.
Oh, what was it? Was it brown recluse or something like that? Or
yeah, I think
it was the false widow. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were saying like that they've come across to England and they ate this guy's leg, and I did like the most basic Google search in the world, and I found hundreds of results saying that the false widow, or whatever spider it was, had lived in England since the 1800s, and there had been no deaths attributed to it. And there was one guy who died who had about 50 underlying medical conditions, and he got a spider bite, and he left it for like 2 weeks before he went to the hospital and all. Like, and like I think you could explain to it's off. This is not intended to sound misogynistic at all, but it is often women who are more scared of spiders. Like, that's a fact.
No, that's not. Yeah, that is definitely a fact. I mean, I remember I read something earlier that said, arachnophobia tends to affect women more than men. So
yes,
it's definitely
more
kind of thing. I think a lot of it with men is also a kind of thing of, you're not meant to be scared or anything, so why should this little bug scare you? It's almost it's male bravado almost.
Yeah, pretty much. But that bug is so much more scared of you than you are of it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing, the whole spider thing. I think I've definitely experienced my own evidence that you can rationalize certain phobias to overcome them. We spoke about heights.
Yeah.
I definitely used to have a fear of heights.
Yep,
and
same.
I don't know what, like, there's this sort of, where I used to live, in one of the places I lived in Dublin when I was about 11 or 12, like, there was a footbridge that overlooked the motorway, and it wasn't even terribly high up, but when I crossed it I had to walk in the middle. I didn't like the fact that I was looking down on something. But then some years later I went to Paris and I was on top of the Eiffel Tower, and I just thought, like, I'm just gonna look down and this is awesome.
I used to get quite nervous being at heights, and it always used to be a thing of, I'm scared of heights.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up, and I used to do I went through a phase of where I did a lot of like free running and stuff, so I was constantly climbing tall buildings.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped diminish it a little bit. But then, kind of thinking about it, it was a fear of falling, a fear of being out of control of the situation, I think would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
As long as I felt in control, I wasn't scared of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like,
I heard about this, I think it was, I want to say it was Darwin, but I don't know if I'm entirely correct about that, but I think it was him who actually started studying fear initially. I might be completely wrong about it being Darwin. But he did this thing where he stood in front of a huge piece of glass, and I actually, this is the worst fact-checking thing I've ever done, but some scary animal, I'm going to say a lion, it was probably not a lion, but he like arranged it so that a lion would jump up in front of him, and he noted his reaction and how he was still terrified, despite knowing that the glass was there, which that sort of points out the irrational side of fear itself. Like, when I was walking across the footbridge, even though there was railings on it, I was still a little bit afraid of it. So I think it's just it is essentially the fear of falling. It's the fear of the fact that you may not be in control of the situation, or it's just a sort of instinctive thing as well.
I mean, it's like if you fall from something high, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't fight gravity. There's no fighting it. Like, put me in front of a large dog, and I mean, if it is vicious, I will be cautious and try and get the fuck away from it. But I have the ability, if it comes down to it, to punch it. I can't punch gravity and get me back on that bridge.
I did actually. This is nothing to do with fear as such, but I once watched a documentary about this woman who fell from an airplane, and like, she fell like hundreds of feet, and she actually landed on the ground, like, but the only damage that she had was about a 20-minute memory loss and a broken arm, and that was it.
I mean, wasn't there that story a couple of years ago of the guy doing a tandem freefall with an instructor, and both parachutes failed to open. I mean, the main and the reserve failed to open, so the instructor turned them so that the instructor was underneath, so he would be the one to hit the floor first. And I mean, the fear in that situation, and the consciousness of mind to think, I'm going to save this person's life by basically sacrificing my own.
That's serious.
That's a terrifying thought, to have to make that decision.
I know, especially when you're spiraling towards certain death. Like, Yeah, that's
And yeah, I think the guy that the guy that the instructor was jumping with did survive.
yeah. I think he landed in a tree, as far as I
Yeah,
remember.
so something like that. But that was terrifying. I mean, speaking of jumping and free falling and all that, and the fear of that, did you watch Felix Baumgartner's jump from
Yeah,
the edge of space, as it were?
yeah. I watched all. I think that was on for about 4 hours. That
4 hours.
day.
And I sat down with a few beers and watched it.
Yeah, same
Even
here.
though
It was on a
about-
Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, yeah.
I watched every single minute of it. That was incredible.
Same. And when he started to go into that spin,
Yeah,
it was like a flat spin halfway down, and you could just hear his breathing, his
yeah.
heavy breathing, him trying to get words out. And he said in interviews that he doesn't remember it, and that he was really close to losing consciousness completely.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's a pretty. I mean, I've just shivered slightly. I've got goosebumps a little bit there just from that. But I mean, that is.
Did you see they just recently released the GoPro footage from
yeah.
that, and you can hear him saying, like, I think it was actually inaudible, but it sounded like panic and and complete fear. But that was an amazing moment. Like, that's something that I will never forget. Like, I think that was our moon landing type moment.
No, yeah, definitely. Well, yeah. I mean, I was looking through tweets the other day, and I just, because I came across one of. I think I might have favourited my own tweet for some reason, fear of forgetting my own tweets. But and it was literally it was just the phrase "Stop complaining, it's taking too long. Realise what he's about to do."
Yeah.
And that was pertaining to that jump, because people were saying, "Oh, this is boring. Nothing's happening. All he's doing is falling."
I
And
know.
it's like,
Yeah.
Fucking hell, like.
What are you expecting here?
Yeah.
I've sat here for 4 hours. This is not a problem for me.
Yeah, this is exactly what I've been expecting.
Yeah. Imagine if Twitter was around in the 60s when they were going to the moon, and they'd be just be like,
God.
"Come on, rocket, blow up already."
Oh, Jesus.
The Red Bull moon landings. That'd be something. But
God.
so the fear of heights is generally misattributed to vertigo. I think, is that Alfred Hitchcock's fault, or?
Vertigo, yeah, it probably would be actually.
Yeah, I was just thinking
that was the film. It was based on a 1950s novel.
Oh, was
it? Was made in the 1950s as well, actually, if I'm correct.
And the movie, there are a lot of scenes in that movie that actually do show what the real vertigo is, where it's very disorientating and everything is spinning around.
I mean, as far as I can remember, having last seen the film Vertigo, the film, this isn't a spoiler for anyone, the film starts with a rooftop chase where someone falls off and dies.
Yeah.
And that I think that, and they include the whole thing of what vertigo is, for people that don't know, is it's a type of like dizziness and
nausea.
Yeah, dizziness and nausea, both like in terms of your vision and your body, really, loss of balance.
Yeah.
That film was the first thing that really introduced vertigo in terms of a term of fear of heights.
Yeah.
Right, that to the mass public.
And from there on, the word was ruined.
Yep.
And I nearly tripped over that in the last podcast as well. But luckily, I pulled myself back just in time. But so I looked up a lot of phobias, and I found some really interesting ones. The first one that I want to talk about, because everybody knows I fucking hate the ocean. That's one of my things. This Thalassophobia, which I hope I'm pronouncing right, but it has a TH in it, so I'm doomed from the start here.
Yep.
But the Wikipedia entry for that says that it's an intense and persistent fear of the sea. And it specifies that it's sea because aquaphobia is fear of just water in general. But yeah, thalassophobia is something that I don't really think I have any phobias as such, because I am equally as fascinated by the ocean as I am terrified of it. So I sort of think it's more of I can't really describe what it is, but I definitely do. The whole feeling of anxiety, that does resonate with me when talking about anything to do with the ocean or being in the ocean. However, I really like being on ferries and stuff. And I think that's why I know that it's not a phobia for me, is because I'm not afraid of that moment that I could fall off. I'm more comfortable with the fact that the safety regulations are so superior and stuff.
I mean, there's an odd. I've got an odd relationship with not quite just the sea, but with open water is a big one. The big one for me. I'm not completely sure of the if there's an actual word for that phobia, because I suppose it's a reasonable fear.
Yeah,
But,
I'd say it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but because I mean, spent during my childhood, summertime was spent on a ferry across the English Channel to go to France. The typical lower middle class white English holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was that thing, and there was always the kind of looking over the edge into the ocean. But I think it's definitely something like what's the film? Is it where they go on a yachting trip out to the middle of the ocean? They all jump off and forget to put the ladder down.
It's called Open Water, I think.
Yeah, that's the one. Of course it is. How could I forget that? But,
yeah. Because it was a dire movie. That's
no,
why.
yeah, that's why. But that was really that is really one of the things that I could not get over. And I read a book actually recently. It was all about Australia, and these people had gone out to the Great Barrier Reef. This big organised trip out to the Great Barrier Reef to go snorkeling and stuff.
Yeah.
With a big group of people, and two people went off a little bit outside, or away from the boat, in a different direction to everyone else, and they basically just got left behind.
Oh shit!
In the middle of the ocean.
Oh god.
And they've never found them.
Oh no.
Yeah,
that's terrible. I bet they got abducted by mermaids and now they're sea creatures.
Maybe, but yeah, that's terrifying.
You know what's going to happen is someday they're going to come back and they're going to look like the creature from the Black Lagoon, and they're going to slowly take over the world, and they're going to they'll just bite one person and then they'll turn into the same monster, and that's how the zombie apocalypse will happen.
This sea people.
Yeah, they came from beneath the sea, that's what they'll call it. Yeah. That movie's due a remake as well.
Yeah.
But that thought is fucking terrifying. I think I would rather burn alive than have even a chance of that happening to me, because that is so it's not even it's the fact that you don't know what's beneath you, but also just the complete isolation and I don't know, I can't even I have this fascination with the sea. In fact, what's a really weird story about me, right, is that I remember the very first time learning to swim. We had swimming lessons with my entire school, and I was about 7 or 8, and they did this thing where everyone who can swim line up over here, everyone who can't line up over here, and all the people who couldn't swim, I watched them all sort of line up, and they were given those little raft things that you lie on, and they were told to lie on your belly and just practice trashing the water or whatever the technical thing is. And all the people who said that they could swim were told to swim from one side of the pool to the other
to prove it.
Yeah, and everyone just goes diving in, and I was about 7th in the line. I was watching everyone, and for context, I couldn't fucking swim. I'd never even been in water, but I just fucking dived straight in head first, and then got rescued by a lifeguard because I nearly drowned. And that was when I learned I couldn't swim, and that was sort of a fear of water for me a little bit. Because that was obviously a terrifying moment, because I could have died, although I couldn't have really died because there were too many people around me. But had I tried to show off like that in a more isolated incident, I would have died definitely. But after I learned how to swim that time, and then I went to a summer camp in that summer, and I all of a sudden just fucking forgot how to swim, and I don't know what it was. I had this sort of nagging thing at the back of my head. I think I sort of associated it with the shame of not knowing how to swim in the first place, and everybody being like, well, why did you say you could swim if you couldn't? And me being like, I don't know, leave me alone. I had that, and I just never picked it up. But then this is where it gets weird for me, because I went on holidays to Croatia, which was probably one of the best holidays of my life. Croatia's an awesome country, and we were out by the coast in a fishing town that overlooked the sea, and we took out a paddle boat one day. And I kept on jumping off it with my snorkel thing on, looking at the corals and all of that. And then we went out far enough so that when I jumped in, all I saw was just blue.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Blue. Yeah.
Very, very dark blue. And then I got back on the boat, and I was like, that was really cool. And even thinking about that now makes me shiver. And I did that, and I don't know how I did it. I obviously picked up this fear of the sea, or whatever it is. I obviously picked it up afterwards, and I don't know what it's driven by. It's just so persistent though.
I think children, when you're younger, it's kind of a thing of, oh, that's cool, and that's your thought process.
Yeah, you're a
oh,
little.
That's cool.
You're a little more careless.
Yeah, and now it's, oh, that's cool. But I read one time on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And there is things down there that I don't want to get anywhere near.
I think you're dead right with that.
Yeah, I think, I'm not saying, I'm not going to say that the internet's ruined us, because if we didn't have the internet, we'd probably just learn about it in school or read it in a book.
Yeah.
Or hear tales of the sea people from, two guys on a podcast, whatever.
Yeah. Rise of the sea people.
The rise of the sea people. But yeah, I mean, the big one for me, especially on a massive scale, it's like the Mariana Trench is.
Oh yeah.
I think the thing of my nightmares.
Yeah, that is. That's the deepest part.
Deepest part of the ocean
in the world.
It's the deepest you can go, and it's something like I think it's about 2,500 kilometers long, or 1,500 miles.
Fucking, I've never
long.
even travelled that far, from one point to another.
It's. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page here, and it's got a maximum known depth. It might be deeper, of 6.8 miles deep.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. And that's the deepest known part. I mean, there could be parts deeper in that trench or other places in the ocean that are even deeper than that. And I think it was after a mile down, or maybe it's less than that. But after something like a mile down, light just stops. Light stops being able to go. Like sunlight stops being able to go that deep.
Yeah.
And it's just darkness.
And that's where the fish and all the creatures get really weird, because you have those, the ones from Finding Nemo that have their own light bulbs.
Yep.
But
anglerfish, I think they're called.
Yeah, and for another little anecdote. Well, this isn't an anecdote. I learned this like years ago when I used to look up things about the megalodon and see. I actually have you ever seen a movie called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? It was made in the 50s. It's got Kirk Douglas. So I love that movie. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's about it's actually too hard to even explain. Just fucking Wikipedia, people. But there's a part in that where Captain Nemo's submarine gets attacked by a giant squid. And I used to think that was so cool, because I love fiction, and that I love that idea. Like, I love the Lovecraft Call of Cthulhu. That's not even how you pronounce it, but I love all of that stuff about sea creatures and stuff. But I was looking up, like, sort of what was the largest animal that's ever lived under the ocean, and it turns out it's actually the blue whale, which is a little disappointing, I think. I'd rather it was something better than the blue whale, like
the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah, exactly that. But I found out that they found a giant octopus off the coast of Japan, or maybe it was off the coast of Australia. I think it was off the coast of Japan, and I think it was a Japanese crew that investigated. It was something like 2,000 feet down. I may have just made that up. It's very possible that I did. But that was about... the last time I read about this was probably about 7 years ago, but I'm gonna say they found it in 2004, or they definitely found it in the early 2000s, and it was just a gigantic octopus that no one had ever seen before, and it immediately went from myth to fact. And I think that's really, really cool, but also really, really terrifying, because we don't know what's down there in other categories of, like, that Marianas Trench. At the bottom of that, there could be like super gigantic. There could be like Octa Croc versus Mega Shark, and all of those things down there. Like,
yeah, I've just looked up the colossal squid.
Oh yeah,
that's the actual. Well, I say the actual. It's got a Latin or Greek name, but the colossal squid, and it's only known from a few specimens. The current estimates put its maximum size at 12 to 14 meters in length.
Jesus Christ. I thought you were going to say feet, and I would feel a little bit like, whoa, that's a lot, but wow.
39 to 46 feet.
It's like, can you imagine, like, you're on a ferry somewhere, and, I don't know, you slip and fall into the ocean, and for some reason you've got blocks attached to you, and I don't know, but you fall down there, and, like, you finally get free. Like, you say you work so hard on getting free, and you untangle yourself, and you look up to swim up, and there's a fucking 14-meter squid looking at you. That's where you. That's territory where you just die from fear. Like, oh, that's just
How
terrible.
how does your mind process seeing an animal of that size that you've only ever seen maybe closest on a plate?
Yeah, yeah. That's a real thing about. It's just unfathomable. Like, literally, we can't even comprehend that because, well, it would be such an alien situation to find yourself in, anyways. But that's a really intense fear for sure. Like, I really dislike anything involving the ocean, but I love watching Blue Planet and I love learning about it. I can't really explain how it affects me.
I suppose we don't have phobias because, I mean, a phobia, you actively make every effort to avoid it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we don't have... I think people overuse the word phobia.
Yeah, I think so. There's one there called telephone phobia, which is the fear of answering the telephone. And, like, because a phobia is based on an anxiety thing, I know as an introvert and, like, someone who is at times socially awkward, I know that answering the telephone is definitely a hard thing to do. Like, especially when the person calling could want anything and you might not know how to handle the situation, and it's just all this sort of pent up panic and anxiety. But is it a phobia? Like, does it interrupt my life? Nah. I understand it for sure. Like, I definitely get instances where I would display sort of phobia-like reactions to it, but no, it's not something that interrupts my life, or it's not an international. It's not an irrational thing that makes me unsettled.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at one now, levophobia, which is fears of things to the left side of the body.
Yeah, see, that's
a phobia because that's a completely irrational fear.
Yeah, that's very strange as well.
That is an incredibly strange one.
What was the one? I don't know what it's called. I actually didn't even find this when I was researching this. But the fear of the number 13. I think that is bullshit. I think I have never met anybody with that, and I know that, like, on airplanes it goes from rows 12 to 14. Like,
it's not even every airline that does that. It's only I think BA and maybe American Airlines, a couple of the American airlines.
Aer Lingus and Ryanair do it.
Yeah. Not all of them do it. A lot of them just go 13. But it's just something that's so deeply ingrained. A fear of the number 13. You know, that unlucky number 13 thing is just deeply ingrained in society.
It is, but it shouldn't be. It's a dated... Like, well, I mean, anybody listening, like, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, and I'll happily admit it, but here's a story about fear of the number 13 that's just where somebody takes a phobia and just completely... This is more irrational than fear of the number 13, what I'm about to tell you, right? There's a politician in this country called Jackie Healy-Rae, and he deals mainly in County Kerry. That's where his constituency is. It's in the south of Ireland, and I don't like the guy. I think he's a nutcase. But whatever, nobody really takes him too seriously anyway. But he's got a son, Michael Healy-Rae, who last year set out this new agenda in the car industry in Ireland. Our car registration number is, like, say for example mine would be 02D and then a big long number, and the 02 is the year the car was registered, D means Dublin, and the really long number is the number of car it was registered. So in the year 2013 they would all say 13 on them, and Michael Healy-Rae, in his infinite wisdom, decided not to do that, and instead they say 131 or 132 depending on what month it was made, as far as I know. But that's just so fucking stupid, because he thought it would harm the car industry that the number 13 is on there. You think anybody in this country at the moment, in its broken economic state, who can afford to buy a car, can't afford the fucking hypnotherapy it would take to just for someone to say snap out of it and stop being afraid of the number 13? Like, it's so stupid that I want to buy a new car, but I'll wait till next year because I'm afraid of the number 13. What if your car is the 13th registered car that year, or even the 2013th? But even when it says 131, it still has the number 13 on it. So if you're afraid of it, it's still going to come into play. It's just so stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know, if you've got a fear of the number 13, how do you just go through day-to-day life?
Yeah.
With 24-hour, if you've got a 24-hour clock nearby you,
yeah.
1 o'clock must terrify you.
Yeah, you're fucked every 1
13 minutes past 1 p.m. You are you are fucked.
That's
every
heart
day.
attack territory, right?
Paralysed in fear.
Yeah. Even like you've got a keyboard and you look at it, it goes
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Like you're looking at 1 and 3 right next to each other that whole time.
Awfully terrifying stuff, really.
Yeah. This is I will not sleep tonight because of this. This number 13 stuff. But that's somebody just applying the word phobia to something that, like, I mean, there may have been a point in time where, like, due to religion or, you know, folklore or something, that people feared the number 13 back when they worshipped the sun god and all of that. But nobody nowadays is afraid of the number 13 as far as I'm aware, and it definitely doesn't require a major overhaul of our registration system, which I think is one of the best in Europe as well. And like now, if like I tell that story, people just laugh because it's so fucking stupid, and I hate that shit. It's like there's another new one as well, Nomophobia, which is the fear of not having your mobile phone with you. Again, I can understand because I've been at the pub without a phone and it feels shit. But it doesn't make me feel anxious or anything. Maybe I'm just not that popular. That's what it is. You know what I mean? I've never like, oh no, I don't have my phone with me. I'm gonna panic. I'm sure people do.
I've left my phone at home before, and while it's a thing of, I haven't got a phone. Well, that's a bit shit. Can't check the time. I could probably ask someone.
Yeah.
But then there's there's that quick thing about in the back of your head that just says, what if you're in trouble and you need to phone someone? I'll ask somebody.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal.
I'll get some change and use a payphone.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be alright. I've just stumbled actually across you saying a fear of the number 13. Octophobia. Fear of the figure 8.
What is that, like as in like the ballerina type thing, like, or whatever, ice skating? Isn't it ice skating?
I don't know. It says fear of the figure 8. So that's not a fear of the number. It's literally a fear of the shape of a number 8.
So snowmen would be
Snowmen
terrifying.
Are terrifying. The concept of infinity is sidewaysly terrifying.
It's horizontal.
There must be white girls all over the country and the world that terrify these poor people with octophobia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean a big one which actually kind of goes back to the fear of the ocean and the open water, which I forgot to mention, was it's a big fear of the unknown. I've got I wouldn't say it's a phobia, but I've got a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop me from going out and doing new things and making friends and stuff like that. But it definitely pertains. I mean, there was a quote, I can't remember who it's from, and I if you could probably Google it, but it's what's more terrifying, the thought that we're alone in the universe or we're not?
Yeah, that is a very that's
profound. That's a quote from a man much smarter than me.
Yeah. But
that thought that if we are alone in the universe, that's as much of a terrifying thought about the fact that there's nothing, just nothingness out there.
Yeah, even the concept of the universe in general can be quite. I don't think. Yeah, maybe terrifying, but I think what stops me from being afraid of it is the fact that I always reassure myself that it's a simulation anyway, and that the master computer programmer has programmed me to not be afraid of it or something. I don't know. But like with regards to fear of the unknown, I've had so many holidays, or well, that makes me sound like I'm a philanthropist, billionaire, playboy, but I've had so many moments in my life where I've gone, you know what, I want to do something I've never done before, so I fly to some foreign country and eat McDonald's for the week and drink in the Irish bar. And it's like, what stops me from going and assimilating and learning new things and stuff? It's a slight nagging thing that, well, this is safe. Like, it's safe to eat Subway and stuff. Not in the long run for your health, but it's safe in the moment that nothing abnormal is gonna happen to you or anything.
No, yeah, I mean, there's one thing. I've always had this desire and want to travel. I've always wanted, as cliche as it sounds, to see the world and travel the world.
Yeah.
And one thing that always crosses my mind is I don't speak another language. I can just about speak some conversational German, and I can understand the gist of what Spanish is being said in Spanish. But ask me to go and travel through that country, it will be a case of me with a backpack talking very loudly and slowly in English.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of thought where if I go to travel to somewhere, I want to integrate, I want to experience the culture, and I don't want to be the person standing there speaking loudly and slowly in English.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually think that that's why. Have you ever seen the movie The Beach?
Yeah.
Well, at the very, very start of that movie is all about this sort of backpacker ideology that wants to move away from all this like Lonely Planet TripAdvisor ratings. Like they want to explore themselves, and they have a sort of elitism about it where they look down on everybody who goes abroad wearing a football top and people like me. But the first thing that happens in that movie is Leonardo DiCaprio lands in Thailand and he gets offered snake blood to drink, and he says, "No thanks, I'm alright." And then they just go, "Oh, what, you're afraid? You're just like everybody else." And that's what makes him just think, "Fuck it, I'll have some snake blood." And that's what he does. And then like the rest of the movie is about this ideology of sort of doing your own thing and fuck the fear of the unknown, like that thing.
Yeah.
And that movie, I read the book. The book is way better than the movie, which is a cliche, but it's very true in this case.
Yeah.
That book sort of inspired me to attempt that on some level, but I always like I kind of do it like half-hearted, and then I just retreat to my safety zone. And I think there's a little bit of the fear of the unknown in all of us in that sense, because I don't know, it just takes a very brave person, especially when, like, there are murderers everywhere and all, like, all of those irrational things. Kind of similar to the fear of sharks. The way people are afraid of sharks, even though, like, nobody ever gets, well, like, few people die every year from sharks, whatever. It's sort of the same, where people are just too afraid to do things because they read some story in a 1970s newspaper, or they understand some urban myth to be true about what happens if you go to this part of the world. You get eaten alive by sea creatures that used to be human.
Yeah, that were lost on the Barrier Reef, yeah.
Rise of the Sea People too.
Yeah, the Rise of the Sea People. But the fear of like that fear of things that people have said. I mean, the hearsay that you've heard. I mean, I know a lot of people were worried. I say a lot of people. Some higher ups for football related things were worried that having given Brazil the World Cup, that everyone would go, South America, that sounds a bit killy.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit gang violence, and don't the Mexicans live there? They have cartels and things.
Yeah.
So they were really worried that people wouldn't go to basically to see to watch the World Cup in Brazil because of the fear of getting brutally beheaded on YouTube.
Yeah.
World Star Hip Hop or whatever it is.
Yeah. Live Leak. That's where I watch all those videos. I mean, I don't watch any of those. Don't take me. But what I found interesting about that as well is that the balance of blame and fear and things like that with regards to FIFA has totally shifted to Russia now, where everyone's like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to the World Cup in Russia because there is racism there. I would go to Brazil, but I wouldn't go to Russia. And it's like, what the crime rate in Brazil is like? In comparison to what it's like in Russia and stuff.
Stay out of the slums and the ghettos and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Much like anywhere else in the world.
Besides, you can just buy an AK-47 in the gift shop. It'll be fine. No one's going to do anything.
Yeah. But I'm sure if you walk through the streets of Russia with a bottle of vodka, you'll be everybody's friend.
Yeah.
You should be alright.
Yeah, just as long as you're not black or gay or Mexican or any other race apart
or
from
anything
white.
Else white, yeah.
Yeah. And a beard helps too.
Yep, I should be alright then.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
I can drink fairly heavily, I should be alright.
Yeah, you would actually be a very good Russian, I think.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know what Jack looks like, he's about 8'5", and he's like 16 stone of pure muscle, and he has a beard made out of animals that he's killed with his bare hands.
Yeah.
I think that's an accurate description.
Yeah, I mean, you say animals, that is just one animal, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the one animal that makes up the beard.
And it was a blue whale that you killed with your bare hands.
Yeah. I strangled it to death with the tentacles of the colossal squid that I killed only moments before.
Yeah, and then you fought off all the sea people, just so that they couldn't make a sequel of that movie. You killed every last one of them. Yeah, that was a good call.
No, yeah. I should make a movie out of my life, really.
That would be interesting. Rise of the blue whale beard man with the. I'm not good at movie titles.
Yeah.
Fear of movie titles.
It needs something catchy, but God knows I'm not the man to give it that catchy title.
No, actually, quick tangent here. How do you pronounce your Twitter handle name? Because it's like Jack.
I've had this brought up to me by a couple of people, and I don't know.
Ah.
I changed it. I don't remember when I changed it, but I have a feeling I was drunk.
Yeah, it's possible.
And I have a feeling that my Twitter handle sounded good in my head. Like the closest that I can think of it being is like, this sounds so mentally disabled, but Jacka. And that's as close as I can assume that's what I changed it to.
Oh dear.
But the honest truth is I don't know.
You said that with such regret as well.
Yeah, I've changed my Twitter account name a couple of times, and every time it's kind of like, oh, that sounds good. Oh wait, no, it doesn't. Oh dear.
That's in my head. It's Jack Swagasaurus all the time.
Yeah. That only started out. I only changed my Twitter handle to that as a joke it was only meant to last a week, and then it stuck around for about a year and a half.
Yeah, I think it's obvious to anyone who knows you that it's definitely a joke. I hate anytime I have to explain to like some of my friends or whatever. Like, I was out with my friend in London. His name's Jack. You might have seen him on Twitter. It's Jack Swagasaurus, and they're like, "What is he, a fucking idiot? Jack Swagasaurus? Are you serious? What does he think? He's some kind of wrestler or something? What the fuck is that name all about?" And that was. I was gonna say, luckily you changed it to something marginally better, but I don't know that that's true.
I'm to be honest, it's Twitter. These things don't really matter.
No, they don't. Nothing on Twitter matters.
No, yeah.
Apart from your number of followers. So follow me, bitches. Yeah. No, just kidding.
Yeah, follow us. Follow for follow.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. That's a complete lie.
Picture comments for picture comments is a little MySpace joke for any old school people out there.
Oh, good God. Oh dear.
Anyways.
Yeah, I think we've gone majestically off topic.
Yeah, I've got a good one to hook us back in.
Brilliant.
This is something that I honestly don't know if I have or not. It's called Gamophobia, and it's the fear of being married or committing to something or being in a relationship. And I don't want to get too personal, but I think I possibly have this. There's another one called Philophobia, which is fear of being in love. I don't think that's what this is. I think Gamophobia is more like you can love someone, but if they love you back, that's when it kicks in. And it's something that I don't know. There are many things I want to say about this, and I don't know that I can, but something happened recently where I got with a woman that I probably shouldn't have, and it's nothing to do with her or how she looks or what her personality is like. It's just I felt this genuine anxiety about not wanting to be in that situation because of where it could have led. And yeah, I feel like I have this. I feel like I don't want to be in a relationship. I feel like I've done that enough, and it's something that I'll maybe worry about because I know that when you get older, your hormones naturally make you want to settle down and have kids and do all of that. And I feel like I have stuff to do now. I have to conquer my fear of the unknown before I can go down that line. But I don't know. It's an interesting one for me. I honestly don't know if it's real or.
I mean, I was talking to. I suppose I'd be. Well, I say the opposite end. I'm not married.
Not yet, anyway.
No. Well, yeah. God.
I've got a question for you, Jack.
Yes, I do. But no, I was talking about not quite this, but the with my girlfriend the other day, and she was saying that she never thought that me and her got together, like before we got together, she never thought that we'd be a couple, because she didn't think I was the type of person that would do relationships.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't strike her as the person who does relationships, and I'm looking back through I've still got like the WhatsApp conversations that I had with her a few years ago, and you know there was a part where I said I'm done with relationships. You know,
yeah.
I just want someone. Oh well, I said I just want someone to have sex with, basically. Just
They
get
like
rid of the
honesty, though. That's fair.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not sure that much honesty, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean that was only after I'd broken up with a girl that was a complete cunt.
Yeah. That's. I think
to put it quite lightly.
I think that was my problem. Also, was I had a bad relationship, but it was. It was worse than bad in the the fallout and all the things, and it's just not a part of my life that I like thinking about, and it's not something that I ever want to go through again. And I think that's just what it is. But I do really get this uncomfortable feeling whenever I get close to people, and I really don't like it. It's something that I actively avoid. So I think that makes it a phobia.
Yeah, I think that does make it a phobia if you actively avoid it. And I mean, yeah, I think that's part of the definition of a phobia.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I was going to say it's nothing that could hurt you. I mean, it could, it can emotionally hurt you, but it's not a reaction to a physical trigger.
Women don't have scissor hands, and they don't breathe fire. So there's no logical reason why I should be afraid of being in a relationship with one. It's just.
Yeah, I think that takes it from the fear onto a phobia, really.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
it's something I never knew until I started researching this. It's interesting that this podcast coincided with what my kind of moment where I realized I had it.
Yeah,
because it's something that's been on my mind, and I get real I don't like thinking about it. It's I don't know. It's interesting.
It makes you kind of uneasy to think about.
Yeah, very much so. I really enjoy my own company. I really like being by myself, and I feel like I have to do that. I feel like I don't know. I'm just very comfortable with my own company, and I don't want to share that with anyone really.
No, I mean, to be honest, I don't think that phobias are things that are constant. I don't think that they're a thing that. I mean, if what's the word I'm looking for?
Diagnosed?
No, if they're not encountered, and they're not, if you're not taking an active effort to almost put yourself into that state of fear, and to encounter and to go against your phobia, then it's not going to go away. But I mean, if you it's like the phobia of needles. A lot of people have phobias of needles, and stuff like that. But I mean, it's I can't remember the name of the psychologist, but psychological tests where, that was it. It was guy had a fear of balloons, and so the psychologist, what they first did was they put him in a room about 10 feet away from an uninflated balloon, and he couldn't stay in the room for more than 20 seconds. He was that terrified of balloons.
Jesus.
Not even inflated. And they slowly built up where they'd put him, they'd put the balloon in a room, and they'd just stand him at the door, and he'd look at the balloon, and then they'd move him closer to the balloon and stuff like that, to the point where he could basically was in touching distance of the balloon.
Yeah.
And and they basically conditioned the fear, this phobia of balloons, out of him through these gradual steps. And
there's a thing called cognitive behavioral therapy,
and
I know.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, and it's sort of leading most psychiatric therapies now. It's something that I know if you go to your GP and tell them that you're depressed, or you feel like you've got a lot of panic attacks and things like that, the one thing that they always recommend is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I did read while looking up arachnophobia that cognitive behavioral therapy is used to help alleviate that anxiety that comes with it. I'd be interested to know what it entails with other phobias and how they get people over it, because it's a strange thing to try and comprehend, really.
I think with something physical like the guy with the balloons, and things with spiders and arachnophobia, it's not as difficult as something that's got deeper roots in more, putting you next to a woman and going, that's a woman, and you're going, I recognise that fact. That's not gonna change anything about the whole relationship thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not. It's not as simple as that.
Yeah, it's not like you stand me 10 steps away from her and move me closer to her and measure my uncomfort or my discomfort as it goes up, because that's not how it works. It's specifically a mindset.
Yeah, although to be honest, I think that would be quite an uncomfortable thing to do anyway. Yeah. Just step closer to her. Yep. Okay. How you feeling?
Yeah.
I feel a bit weird, to be honest. This is an odd experiment.
This is an experiment that I sort of end up going through every night when I'm out with my friends, and one guy will say, "Oh man, that girl is awesome," and we've got a guy in our group of friends who is just like, he's just fearless. He doesn't give a fuck about anything. Shout out to him if he's listening. He knows who he is. He for example, I think it's from How I Met Your Mother where the guy goes, "Have you met this guy?"
Yeah, have you met Ted?
Yeah, it's Barney who says it, right?
Yeah.
I've seen like 7 episodes of that show, but he does that. He'll just walk up and he'll be like, "Have you met this guy?" And the girl will be like, "Oh no, hi," and all. And usually what happens is the guy who was too afraid to go up is mortified and ends up backing off. But I have seen it work, and it's an interesting thing. Yeah. That's like, I mean, that's not cognitive behavioral therapy, but that is something that happens every time I'm on a night out. And,
kind of throwing them in at the deep end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's another thing that I get a lot of questions whenever I ask for questions on Twitter and that, relating to introversion, because I've made it well known that I'm an introvert, albeit I'm relatively outgoing, but I'm still definitely an introvert. And people want to know how to like sort of overcome this uncomfortable feeling they have in groups of people and stuff, and sometimes you just have to go in head first and just sort of dive into a situation. Like, never say no when your friend asks you if you want to go out. Like, just sometimes you just have to do it, and it works out for the best,
I mean, a lot of people mistake the fact that introversion isn't a desire to constantly be alone. It's just, you go through spells of going, fancy going out, fancy being around people, but once you've had enough of being out and around people, that is it. That is, you've had enough. And there's no way of changing, and there's no way of making you enjoy anyone's, company, as it were.
Yeah, it's not a weakness, it's not a disorder, it's just a personality type. There are 2 personality types in that regard. There's extroverts and introverts, and unfortunately we live in a largely extroverted dominated world. But I think the tide is changing in that regard with the rise of the internet, and like there are much more avenues for people to explore for monetary gain or careers online, where they just don't have to talk to people all the time. And there's another phobia that I sort of have an anecdote about, which is I think it's pronounced Gamophobia, which is the fear of blood. And I don't have this per se, but I did once in school, in primary school, like the later years of primary school. We had this class that was dedicated to awareness for drugs and the problems with drugs, and they were doing this presentation with a projector on the board talking about heroin and what it does to the body, and they were doing all these technical terminology, which I don't like anyway. It just makes me uncomfortable. And like, I didn't actually see any images of it, but they were describing like people's veins rotting. Yeah. And I fainted. Well, I went pale, and I fainted. I fell over, and I woke up at home. And it's the only time I've ever fainted in my life, like apart from when I was sick or whatever, but that was the only time it's ever happened. But I did once watch a video on YouTube about a guy who had cystic fibrosis, and he was describing all the ins and outs of it and what it does to the body, and I had to turn it off because I was too uncomfortable. It made me feel weak at the knees. And I don't know if you can incorporate that into Gamophobia, but there's definitely just, I don't like vivid descriptions of the body failing. And I think it's because, on one hand, I have a really, really bad diet, and just a really bad, I don't look after myself at all, and it's inevitable that like my body's gonna fuck itself up someday. It's definitely gonna happen. And I think I'm so in denial about that on so many levels that when I hear about it happening to other people, it makes me really uncomfortable because I know that someday it'll be me, and I don't know. It's one of those things that just.
Yeah, I mean, I guess tying into that, Gamophobia, which is a fear of growing old.
Oh yeah.
And it's not necessarily. I mean, the idea of aging doesn't scare me per se. I'm aware that everyone has to die, and that's not. Dying isn't massive part of my fear. It's not dying. It's the idea of becoming fragile.
Yeah.
And unable to do certain things, just normal day-to-day things. And I've jokingly said to friends, as soon as I stop being able to do X, X simple task.
Yeah.
Not literally. As soon as I stop being able to do ecstasy. As soon as I stop dropping tabs, kill me. But no, yeah, it's kind of as soon as I'm done being able to function as a normal human being, that is me done, really.
Yeah. I think,
especially things. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think our generation is the first generation to think like that, because it's definitely a prevalent thought process amongst a lot of people. Definitely me as well. I really don't like. I like control. I like control over my little micro world and my little bubble, and that's why I don't want relationships, and that's why I fear the unknown and all these things. And my greatest fear on the planet, which I've made videos about before to try and explain, is the fear of losing my mind. I couldn't come up with any word for this. I wasn't able to research it well or anything. But like Alzheimer's or dementia or things like that, where I don't function the way I did mentally, that's just too much for me. Because it would feel like a complete loss of identity for me, and I don't know, I'm very comfortable with who I am and like my morals and the way I react to things and how rational I am with most things, I would think anyway. But I cannot stand the thought that someday my mind won't work the way it will. And I used to have a really good memory, and I used to be able to keep everything in check really well. And only recently did I tell somebody a story and they replied with, "You told me that already." And that was like telling a girl that she looks fat. That was nearly offensive to me. I couldn't believe that I'd already told someone something when I usually keep track of that so well, and just even that terrified me. That's it. I mean, that goes hand in hand with growing old, because that's part of aging. Not necessarily Alzheimer's, but definitely memory loss and.
Yeah, I mean simply the thought of lying somewhere, lying somewhere in my gene pool is Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that, or that I might develop it, is a terrifying thought, really. I mean,
yeah,
they say people with Alzheimer's and dementias have these moments of clarity.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories of where people's grandparents have having not remembered who they are, who their children are, and stuff like that, have looked at them and just said, "I know this must be tough on you guys, and I know I'm not who I used to be."
Yeah.
And those moments of clarity are the most horrifying things to think of.
I know.
I suppose if closest I come to a phobia, I can't actively, avoid getting older.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's the biggest one for me. I mean, just thinking about it, it's not nice.
Yeah, it's the biggest one for me too. Definitely from the mental perspective. I was browsing Imager the other day, as I do daily for about 7 hours, and it's ruining my life. I hate you, Imager. I saw this picture that someone uploaded, and it was like, my granddad has Alzheimer's and he set the table today, and it was like the placemats.
It was the TV remotes,
yeah,
on top of where the spoons should have been.
Yeah, every placemat had a knife, a fork, and a TV remote, and yeah, it was funny in the sense that if you saw it in a Justin Timberlake movie, you'd laugh, but it was also really, really sad because that guy is losing his mind and there's nothing he can do about it. Speaking
of the Justin Timberlake movie, you were referencing Friends with Benefits.
Yeah, of course I was.
There, yeah, for anyone that didn't know. And that, I mean, I'm not saying it was completely unwarranted, because I mean, they used I hate to say they used his Alzheimer's as a device, but they did, to showcase that he Justin Timberlake's character had this deeper emotional almost ability after the film opens with him being told that he's emotionally void.
He actually starts the film out like I am now in the whole relationship sense. Like he does, doesn't he? He's definitely gamophobic, fear of all of that commitment and things like that.
That was almost I wouldn't say completely out of left field, his whole dad coming with Alzheimer's thing, but when it first was kind of revealed in the film, it was kind of like a holy shit, this is taking a bit of a turn.
Yeah, I actually think they did it quite respectfully too, I thought.
Yeah, I have no qualms with how they did it, and the way that it was introduced and spoke about.
You're right though, it was used as a device. It's that scene at the end. Well, would it be a spoiler alert if you ruin the ending of Friends with Benefits? If anyone watches Friends with Benefits and you don't know how it ends from the opening scene, then I feel bad for you.
If you don't know how a romantic comedy ends,
yeah.
We've got some bad news for you here, lads.
It's actually funny because they even reference it in the movie. They have that movie within the movie with Jason Segel or whatever his name is, and it literally tells the story it's about to tell. That movie is actually quite good, and that also ties into last week's Guilty Pleasures one, and on top of that it has two of the phobias that we just referenced.
Yep.
And as well as that, at the very end of that movie, when the sea creature people arrive and eat everybody, I did not see that coming. That movie is basically...
that was sorry for ruining the plot twist, everybody, but don't worry, I'm sure Friends with Benefits 2, The Defeat of the Sea People, are just a fantastic film.
Friends with Benefits 2, this time it's personal. And the cover is Justin Timberlake with two 9mm Berettas and
baffling the sea people.
I would actually pay to watch that movie. I would definitely.
Yeah, I would actually.
That would be awesome. But I think we just about solved all the problems in the world, and we did some nice guerrilla advertising for Friends with Benefits there. So I think
so. Beware of the sea people.
Yeah, look out for them.
Yeah, they'll get you when you're not looking.
Yeah, and if anyone just the sea creature people are not to be laughed at. They're very strange people, and they will return in greater numbers. So everybody beware, and keep watching the skies. Even though they come from the water, just keep watching the skies anyway, because you never know what could be up there.
You never know. I mean, the rain, the heat of the sun boils the water in the ocean, and it might boil the tadpoles of the fish people, the sea people, and they rise up into the clouds and fall from the sky fully formed. Terrifying stuff, really.
Yeah, and when you think about it, everybody knows that the sea creature people are far more angry when they get warm, so that would make it for a more gritty version of it. But yeah, we're gonna end it here. Thanks for
I think
listening.
it's good to end it now.
Yeah, fuck this.